Hello everybody and welcome back to Grad Chat, the podcast where we talk to former film production students from UCA. Today's guest is Anita from Spain, who completed the master's course, the 1 year's master's course here at UCA last year. Having only been graduated for a year, she has already written and directed a short film in collaboration with the BBC New Creatives scheme. I talked to Anita about a number of things, including her start in the filmmaking world and what it was like to direct her first few short films, and how work is for her now in the production department. So without further ado, please enjoy this chat with Anita.
So my name is Anita Pico, and I went to UCA during last year's, during my MA, and I graduated in 2019.
Thank you, Anita, for talking to me today. First of all, I just wanted to ask, how you ended up at UCA, because I know that your background wasn't in filmmaking to begin with.
So I took a different route than most of the people because I went to school to do my bachelor's to United States. So I used to do sports and design and other stuff. So basically I focused more on design and theater. And then my last year of school, I had the opportunity to make like a short film with my friends, and it was kind of like the stepping stone to decide, okay, I think I could make film and everything. But I wanted to return to Europe because I studied in the United States. So I decided that England was pretty much the best choice as I'm from Spain. And that's when UCA came up. And I decided to go to UCA because I went to a really big school for my bachelor's. And it was one of these universities that had so many degrees and different things. So the fact that there was just one university with all these creatives from different fields, like film, design, animation, all of this, was like a great place to get inspired and get training. So that's how I ended up there.
What was the first thing that struck you when you started studying film, especially at a master's level?
So I had, as I said, I had design training and I had theater training, especially more for like production design in terms of building, things like that. But my film background wasn't really technical. So the fact that we got to go there and we got to see like all the installations that they had and all the cameras, all of that, I chose the course because they had like a general background of everything. You got to learn like cinematography and directing and production design. So I knew I was intrigued by direction and screenwriting and design, like a lot of things. But the fact that you got like all this general background on many different fields was what struck me the most, because I got to learn like about everything in like 3 months, 4 months.
Was there a particular department that you felt drawn to when you came?
Well, especially production design first, because that was the background that I had before. I did theater and more like digital design rather than production design itself. So I knew design, and then my main focus was screenwriting, because that's what I really wanted to do. That's what drew me to filmmaking itself. So I knew I wanted to explore screenwriting and directing, things like that. But then I discovered like sound and cinematography. There was so many things that, I didn't really know like what I wanted to do, but yeah.
Talk us through your graduation film that you made while you were here.
So my graduation film was Blacks or Whites,
Mm-hmm.
which I got to write and direct. And it's basically a thriller based on this guy that goes to a white room and he plays a chess game, and we discovered that there's been a crime and there's a mystery behind it and all of that. Yeah, so I got to write the script, and then it was selected to get produced, and I got to direct it. So it was cool.
How was that experience? Was that the first time that you had directed a project of that size?
So I think in terms of that size, yes. So as I mentioned, I made this short film with a couple of friends my last year of my bachelor's. But it was like a totally different experience. It was like a couple of friends, we made it, and then we got it in some festivals and things like that. But this was the first time that I had like a proper project and a proper vision, and being able to write it and then bring it to production, bring it to life, and bring the vision to life with other people to make it happen. That was like the first time I had that opportunity. So it was pretty stressful, pretty great, but it was great.
How did you find graduating then? Because the master's course lasts for 1 year. So a pretty intense year. You come in, you study film properly for the first time. You direct the biggest film that you've ever directed. How did you find graduating? And then how did you cope with the real world, as it is, in quote marks?
Yeah. So yeah, the year was pretty intense. That's for sure. I think when I graduated, I had this like feeling of relief, and at the same time it was sad because I met a lot of collaborators. I met a lot of friends there that I still work with now. But yeah, it was like a different experience. Knowing that you go into the real world, knowing that you only have like at least 1 year of training, basically, in terms of filmmaking. But in terms of preparation, I felt pretty prepared, to be honest, because I had to touch a lot of things. And then the fact that you get one film as your main project, but you're able to touch on many fields like production, pre-production, post-production. I think you get a sense of everything that's happening. So you feel that, okay, you're kind of prepared. But the filmmaking world is difficult and it's tough. It's really fantastic, but it's really stressful. And it's really competitive too. There's a lot of people that want to work into it. So it was kind of like, okay, I'm jumping into a place that I don't know about, but it's still exciting though. It's really exciting to get out there. And now that you know that you can make films, because before I felt like filmmaking was kind of this magic, like, oh yeah, I think about this film and then it just happens. And now you know the whole process. So being able to go out there and kind of make films, that's like a great feeling about it. Yeah.
How did you find adjusting from being a student and working on student film sets to working in professional settings?
So I graduated in September, October was kind of like my graduation. And I had my first professional production, I think it was November, middle of November, like, yeah, ending of November. I was really nervous at first because I kind of decided that I wanted to do more freelance work rather than have like a stable job. And like, because when you go into filmmaking, they tell you like different things. You can take different routes. You can go more as like a runner, get experience, things like that. Or you can make the jump, like I didn't say like, oh, I'm going freelance and it's great. So I kind of decided that there's not really like a real answer, but I kind of decided that I wanted to do more like freelance stuff because I wanted to get more into like the creative part of it. So I got my first productions at the end of like November, middle of November. And at first I was really nervous. I remember my first like production, I got there and I was there as like art director. And I got to see like everybody was older than me, and I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing here. And you get there, and I'm used to like work around people, and everybody's talking about their lives and their things. But then you start seeing like things you've never seen before, and they're talking about this light, and I'm like, what? I have no idea what you're talking about. But at the end, it's not just theory; it's about making. And when you being trained and you know your concepts, so I know this must be here, this must be here, and definitely like getting there, even if you're nervous, like your first productions, it's really important because you get to work around other people and you learn a lot, like just in standby or just like working and seeing other people.
How did you deal with that feeling of feeling inexperienced on a film set when you're working with more experienced professional crew? How did you deal with that?
So, well, as I told you, the first ones I was really nervous. There was one that it was like my second one that I got there and I saw that the level was like quite high. Now the film is premiering in Aesthetica at the end of this year, and I got there and I saw the equipment and everything. I was like, okay, this is another setting here. But at the end, like you feel that you're there because someone trusted you to do your job, and someone saw like your portfolio or something, and you see that most of filmmaking is about conversations, and you can be honest with people. Like, because I remember the first times, because I went as an art director, you see the cinematographer and you see the director, they're talking, and maybe you don't want to approach and say, I don't think this should be here. This is not like helping the scene or anything. But I think you listen, and when you listen and you see what they're talking about, you understand what they're saying. You know that you know. So and you have to remember that everybody began like that, and it's just about like listening and having a conversation. Everybody, they're all people. No one wants to bite you or anything. So you get used to it.
What are the positives and negatives that you found so far working in the industry?
So let's start with the positives.
Mm-hmm.
So filmmaking is great. It's really, really exciting. Just the fact, and it was one of the reasons that I got into this career, is the fact that you get to tell so many different stories. So far, I've been only working like 5-6 months, and I've worked in like thrillers, I've worked in like romantic comedies, more like dramas, everything. And especially when you work in the creative part of it, like cinematography, production design, even producing and all that stuff, everything is a new story. You work like intensely for like 2-3 weeks on it, and then the next week you're in a total different story, a total different world. Like you get to know a lot of people. Filmmaking is all about networking, and I got told this during the master's degree, and I was like, it's fine. It's not, it's all about networking, like totally. But it's fun, and it's true that it's about networking. Like when you get to know people recommend you, and you start to know others, and they say, like, hey, I told this person about you, whatever. And it's true that like once you put one stepping stone there, then all the other stones like begin to move. And it's exciting. It's really fun because people are really passionate about that.
You mentioned that your first job was in November after graduating. How did you get that?
Good question. So that was one of the things that, because I have friends from filmmaking, you know them too, that graduated with me, and it was one of the questions like, okay, but where do I find a job? So in film, you have to be really creative in the ways that you look for work. And you have to be really proficient. I don't want to say you have to be, there's a saying that's like, I'm not talented, I'm obsessed. You literally have to be obsessed about this job. Like it's true that there's no specific place to find jobs. There's a lot of like web pages that I'm sure they've been recommended, like Shooting People and Talent Manager, all that stuff. In my opinion, I suggest that like there's so many like groups in Facebook and things like that. And it's true, you gotta apply for like 100 jobs, and then maybe 5 reply to you, and 4 say like, I'm not interested. But if you knock on 10 doors and 1 answers, that door allows you to enter another 10 doors, like, to be honest. And I had that experience. Like first I did some unpaid work too, which I know that some people say paid work yes, paid work, unpaid work no. It depends on like what is useful to you. If you think this is a production that's gonna help me in the process and it's gonna help me later, like get another jobs and things like that, it's up to you. But I had that experience. I started doing like some shorts, and then some shorts I met some people, and I started like getting another works. And then I recently finished, like I started doing like music videos. So I did one for an artist in April that no one knows about. But that one took me like, and the last work that I did in March was with Disclosure and Anne-Marie and all these people. And suddenly you're there. I'm like, oh, I know this person, So it's true that the jobs are everywhere, but it's really competitive. There's so many people applying, and you see, it's really frustrating too. Like you see one post, and then in 5 minutes, there's like 100 people applying for the same job as you. But everybody began somewhere, so,
Talk to us about What a Circus.
Oh yeah, What a Circus. What a fantastic project.
So start from the beginning. So when did you conceive the idea? Was this during university or was this post-graduation?
So this was during the university. I actually knew about the talent scheme in UCA because I went to have a talk there. And this was way past. Like I think it was February 2019 or something like that. And I remember they had 2 calls from BBC, like to make like these ideas and things like that. And I thought about presenting to the first call, but it was when I was planning the grad film, Blacks or Whites and all of that. And I was like super drowned in terms of work. So there was like no chance. And then I knew there was another call in June, which was when I was doing post-production of the grad films. Basically, it was this talent scheme by BBC, and especially from Screen South, which is the place that is from the Southeast. And they were asking about projects, and they were asking about, they're looking for like young filmmakers, and they want to, sponsor new talent, things like that. I kind of wrote the idea specifically for this scheme because I had other ideas, but I wanted to do something that kind of like apply to everyone, because I kind of know like how these schemes work. So I wanted to do kind of like an universal story, and I always wanted to do something more like Tim Burton style. It was more like sarcastic because, well, I'm from Spain, and I know that like British people really like drama and all that stuff. I'm just not that kind of person. So I decided just like, okay, everyone's going to do drama, so I'm just going to do my weird style. And I prepared the application. It took me like a couple of weeks. I wrote the script, and then I did the creative proposal with everything, and I submitted in June. And then in June, I passed the first round. They called me, and I had to pass 3 more rounds. So I applied to the scheme because I knew that they had training too from the BBC, which is really, really useful for everyone who goes in the industry now, especially for these third years. There's a lot of like training schemes and things like that, that they're not just useful for training, but also for like mentoring and things like that. And so I applied for it, and then after the first round I had to resubmit again, and then I started moving like the pieces and the people that I wanted to work with me. So I started looking for a cinematographer, production designer, producer, and they're all from the university. They're all like alumni now or students, because that was like my network. And yeah, so we passed several rounds, and then we got to August and we got selected. We got the commission. This was a pain in the ass. I don't know if I can say it like that, but it was really stressful. I thought my grad film was stressful, but this was way too stressful.
What made it stressful?
To be honest, it was my first like commission with a program like BBC, things like that. And although it's a great opportunity, and I'm super thankful, it was really great. It's difficult to work with like having a production company like in top of you all the time, especially coming from my grad film, that I had a lot of creative control with it. Like I had the opportunity to sit down with cinematographer, production designer, and, like create the vision about it. When you work with a production company, it doesn't work like that. You have them on top of the project 24/7. Like you send a draft, and then 2 days later saying like, no. You're like, okay, this is great. I have to have like a screenwriting session with the BBC, and it's difficult because the feedback is not just from them. You get feedback from Screen South, you get feedback from BBC, you get Screen South from the commissioner. Everybody has feedback for you, and at the end, like they're putting the money. It's a commission, so it's difficult. It's a difficult process. It's really long, and we didn't finish I think I got the green light with the script like 2 weeks before we started filming, which was in October. And we've been like working on the script since June, and it's 5 pages. Like, but yeah.
This sort of leads into my next question. So mental health and physical health when working in film, I think is very important, because it's very easy. Some of the other graduates that I've spoken to have mentioned burnouts. Some of the other graduates I've spoken to have mentioned a stifling, their creativity has been stifled, and they find it very difficult to deal with that. You mentioned frustrations as well. How did you deal with those frustrations? How did you make sure that they didn't have a lasting effect on you?
Yeah, mental health. I remember I think it was like by the third production that I did after graduation, someone told me like, 80% of people that work in the film industry have like mental health problems. And I was like, I can totally believe that. And I think I've noticed now more, especially when I went freelance, because you have literally no boundaries, and you have to learn about setting boundaries for yourself. You find yourself like, especially me that I work in production design mostly, you sit in the computer at 8 a.m. and you're talking to people, you're receiving emails all the time. And maybe you're like 8 hours in front of the computer, like looking for things and talking to people on the phone. It's really, really stressful. and plus like the hours that you have to go to set and everything. You have to really take care of your like mental health. I think it's about boundaries, and it's difficult when you begin because, as I said, it's competitive. So like, oh, I have this, but if I don't work enough, you have this feeling like if I don't work enough or if I don't put enough time, there's someone that's always like willing to do more or whatever. But there has to be like boundaries, and it's really, really important. Obviously, like you have to work hard, but your health is really important because you end up like no sleeping, no anything. And I think like the largest production I've done so far is like 2 weeks. And at the end of the second week, you're dying. Like you have to wake up 5 a.m. in the morning, and maybe you get home by like 10 p.m., something like that. It's really, if you're not prepared and you're like not stable, it's really difficult. Like you can cope with that. But yeah, I think like mental health is really important.
So do you feel that sort of laying foundations, laying boundaries is the first place to start and then build from there?
Like, for example, one of the first things that I did after like a month and a half was I separated like my personal phone from my work phone, because I found myself that I was getting calls and like messages and emails like 24/7. I would wake up and have like 13 emails. So for example, I decided to get another phone, and some days I would go out or whatever and have dinner with my friends, and you leave the phone at home, because there are people that like literally at 24/7 sending you emails and things like that, like Sunday morning, Sunday night. You're like, so you have to set boundaries, especially because it's a long-term thing. If you're gonna be successful and you're gonna work and you're gonna get work all the time, you need to set boundaries for yourself. It's really, really important, especially freelance.
What's next for you once the lockdowns are over?
I know.
We're in the future.
Yeah.
We'll do the Back to the Future sort of effect here. So we're in the future. There are no lockdowns. The film industry has restarted. What's next for you?
So now after this lockdown like magically disappears, I'm returning to London. I have a couple of productions that are going back in June, hopefully, when all of this is over. And then I have different things. I got selected like a couple of weeks before this for the mentoring program by Screen Skills. So I'm getting a mentor like in the next couple of weeks. So they get me like in different places in the industry. I also got selected in, it was like March, in the talent program by Encounters Film Fest, which is called Widening the Lens. And it's also like a talent program for like filmmakers and stuff. And I think like the festival now is not happening, but they're still doing the program, and it's been really, really helpful in terms of getting contacts and things like that. And I plan to keep working on production design. It's going well. I'm waiting for like a couple of pieces of work to come by so I can start like applying again. And everything is a process, like keep updating your portfolio and everything. And I'm also working in writing and all the stuff, which is like my main goal in the future. I'm in development of a new short film. We're applying to the BFI network funding now soon. And it's been good. Like I'm meeting like new people, new producers, things like that. And I have 2 short films pending on the festival circuit when everything comes back. So I think it's gonna go well. So I'm excited for that. So opens new doors. And yeah, it's only been a couple of months, but it's exciting and it's scary, but it's fun, and it's fun.
How do you keep up? I've found that a lot of people are struggling to find motivation at times like this when you are stuck in the same space. Particularly with writing, I know some people that are finding it very difficult to stay motivated and keep writing. How are you coping with that?
So I'm doing different things. First of all, I'm film obsessed. So I watch so many films, like you have no idea. I watch good films and I watch like bad films. The other day I watched like a film from like 1930s, like a masterpiece. And yesterday I think I watched like Train to Busan, which is like the worst zombie film ever made. And I really loved it. It was great. So I watch a lot of films. I'm not writing that much, Like I started writing more at the beginning of the lockdown, but it's true that it's difficult because you're think about everything that's happening there and everything. But I read a lot. I find reading like really, really helpful for everything. And I also watch a lot of talks. I think it's really, really fun. Because I have a couple of friends that are American and they recommend me. For example, Sundance Lab has all the classes open now, which are really, really helpful. And then yeah, I watch a lot of like film talks. I really like, for example, the Hollywood Reporter roundtables, for example. They're really, really useful because you see like people just talking about film and their experiences and things like that. And there's a lot of festivals too that have opened like their past talks and things like that, BFI for example. And I really like hearing like filmmakers talk about stuff because it's true that it's difficult to write these days and create, force yourself to come up with like new ideas and things like that. But then I always have that, like I talk to my friends that are into film, or I listen to like a filmmaker or something, and I'm like, oh, this is so exciting, like I can't wait to go out and film again and write new stories. And so it's exciting again. It's like
I think it's very important during times like these to just keep your ears and your eyes open, observe, consume. You never know where that next spark's going to come from.
It is, and it's important to relax too. Like, creativity is everywhere. I watch a lot of animation, for example, or even playing video games. You're doing something like that you don't have to think that much, or it relaxes you. And it's not about like creativity can be forced. You have to just be open. And sometimes you're like walking, you're like, oh, this is the best idea I've ever had. I find that inspiration all the time. Like when I go outside and I find like when someone says like something funny or does something funny, I write it down. I'm like, how funny it would be that a character would do this on the screen. I'm like, and I laugh by myself, but it's just the best feeling ever.
Final question.
Yeah.
What advice can you give from your position to graduating students from year 3 and masters, but also students that are still currently at UCA?
The advice that I would have wanted is you have to be patient. Like, it's a tough industry. And for example, when I graduated, I remember the last months, I obsessed with the fact that like, okay, but how you get in the industry? But how you get in the industry? And I went to so many talks and heard so many people. It seems like no one can give you an answer. There's really no answer. Like everybody has their own way, and you have to find the way that works better for you. Maybe it's about like freelance and doing more like creative work since the beginning. Other people begin as runners and they start escalating in productions. Everybody has their own like path. So don't get too obsessed with it. And then don't be too mean to yourself too. Like things take time, and the fact that like maybe no one calls at first or things like that. It's not you. There's a lot of people doing the same thing as you, and you'll find the right opportunity at the right moment. Which to me, like I'm someone who is really impatient, so to me it was really hard at first to be like, what's happening. So that's really important. And like don't lose perspective that you love the industry and all this stuff. It's really, really important. Even when things are going well, when things are going bad, you have to like focus like, oh, I love film, and this is this is what I want to do, and I'm willing to do this, and it's gonna go well because you have to trust yourself and your instincts and your skills too. There's a lot of people working in the industry. There's a lot of films being produced, and once you get in there, you see it. It's not this magic world that no one can enter, and it's really satisfying when you love film and you're part of something. And then there's no better like thing that watch the film that you participated in, watch your name in the screen and see the stills, and you're like, oh my god, I was there. This is great. And it's so exciting. Film is so exciting, and you gotta believe on it. It's really fun.
Thank you very much for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that, and thank you to Anita for taking some time out of her day to talk to us. If you want to get in touch, ask any questions, send me some lo-fi beats, please email me at andrew.newman@uca.ac.uk. But until next time, I hope you're doing well, and I will see you soon.